Denel wasn't doing so well prior to 2008, and since then this partnership has done a huge amount of work. So, for example, government's or one of government's key objectives is localization, getting products that are used in the manufacture of whatever is made in a particular entity from South African sources. And the company can say to you that at the moment it used to be 30% imported, today it is 12% imported. And pretty soon their ambition is to buy all of the components that they require, or materials that they require from South African sources, which is quite important both in employment terms but in terms of generating growth in our economy as well. The investigation process, and you'll be given handouts in a moment which will indicate to you exactly what is the process that takes place at this plant, so that you have a full understanding of the 4 or 5 steps that is actually followed, and the CEO will take you through that in a moment, because the exact location of the explosion in this process is quite crucial for everyone to understand, so that there's some context to the reporting that you do and the explanations that you actually offer. Subsequent to the explosion itself, the site has been declared safe for investigations. The investigations themselves are being conducted by the South African Police Service, the Department of Labor, and an independent specialist appointed by the company with the prior approval of Denel, so that you have an independent view on what might have been the cause of the explosion. At this point in time, I know everybody wants to know what caused this explosion. It is impossible to say at this point. There are various scenarios that are possible, and the investigators and the investigation process will explore each of the possibilities. So here you have material, which will be explained to you in a moment, which lends itself to a fire, or a fire that could develop into an explosion. And what triggers the fire or the explosion is the answer that needs to be found by the investigation process itself. Now, the investigation process could be anything between a few weeks and a few months. But as we get more clarity on how long it would take to identify a possible set of causes or the cause of the explosion, we can give you and the public an assurance that there will be regular briefings in this particular regard, so that it's not left as a mystery. As far as the immediate families are concerned, from the moment of the explosion itself, the firm has set aside people from its HR section and its HR manager in particular, and for much of this week the focus has been on the families that are going to be affected by the explosion and the loss of life that we've actually seen. And there's been very close contact between the company and those families. The families have been given an assurance that nothing will happen without consultation with them. Secondly, the families have been offered trauma counseling, both for this week and for weeks to come, as they go through this very traumatic process of firstly receiving the news that somebody in their family might be missing, but secondly in what follows in the days and weeks ahead as well. And what we will try to do at least once a week, if not more often, is ensure that there are public briefings on progress made in the investigation, what the possible causes are, if there's news about that, and then clearly one of the key issues that the families and the public will be interested in is the forensic process of identifying the people affected in the blast itself. Now that, we are told, is a process that could extend into next week, and sometime between Tuesday next week and Friday next week, we will have results, as will the families, in terms of the proper identification of the persons concerned. The families have requested that at this point in time, names should not be released. So I know there's a need for names and identification to be communicated, and as soon as the families give the consent, the firm will make sure that the public knows about the names and the identity of the people concerned. And what we ask for in this particular regard is for patience and cooperation from all the stakeholders concerned, so that we can respect the views of the families, and in every step that is taken, ensure that the families' views are taken into account, in as much as the views of the community and other stakeholders will also be taken into account as well. So next week will be a crucial week in this process. In this facility here, there are 400 different buildings. And I'm informed that each of the buildings meet international standards in terms of the safety requirements that this particular industry requires. And many of the customers, if not all of the customers, that buy munitions from this company actually come onto this site and other sites to satisfy themselves that proper safety precautions have in fact been taken, and that the facilities that are available here and have been built here actually meet the requirements of the industry as a whole. The premises themselves that were utilized have been licensed by the Department of Labor, and again, this particular facility was licensed for 10 workers to work in that particular part or on that particular building, and a certain, I think about 1,000 kilograms of explosives or explosive material to be processed according to what will be explained to you in a moment as well. What we've also discussed is to ensure that over the next week to 10 days, the company actually initiates a number of activities which will commemorate the families and the lost ones once they're properly identified. And from Monday onwards, all workers, both at this facility, but in as many facilities of Denel itself, will wear black armbands to demonstrate their solidarity with those that have lost their lives here. Secondly, during all shifts, this is a place where there are shifts that workers operate through. In all shifts for the next week, 15 to 30 minutes will be set aside for prayer services amongst the workers themselves. Thirdly, there will be a memorial service once we have a bit more information by Monday of when proper identification will actually occur, both within the premises of the firm but also in the communities from which the workers themselves have actually come from. And we know that there's a lot of solidarity that is being extended both to the workers affected and their families by church and other community groupings outside of the firm, and every effort will be made both by Denel and Rheinmetall to connect with these activities, but also give the kind of explanations we're giving you today to people in the community so that they have the facts as they are available to understand what actually happened in this environment. Finally, I want to take this opportunity to thank the company itself for the kind of speed with which it has reached out to the families and brought them together and provided them with the support that they actually require. And of course, as I said, that support will now extend beyond the families themselves to the communities at large. The Disaster Management Center in the Western Cape and the city have also played a very supportive role and have been on site from day one, and both their contribution and the joint operating center is one that should be congratulated. It shows that this disaster management system does actually work. And similarly, there have been other role players from the police and other state entities like the Department of Labor and so on that have come to the assistance of the company, but also to do the work that they have to do to identify what might have gone wrong and to play their respective roles in this particular environment. Let me stop there, and I'm sure you have questions, but I want to, if at all possible, appeal to you that this is firstly a complex process, but secondly a sensitive process, and one which we hope we can work with you as the media on, so that we give you as much information as is available in the company itself, and to information that is available to the families in the appropriate kind of way, rather than giving rise to speculation that in fact ultimately causes more trauma or discomfort amongst the affected families. So I leave you with that appeal. You're going to be handed those sheets of paper, and the CEO will very quickly explain, before we take your questions, exactly what this diagram illustrates. Go ahead.
So can I go maybe through this thing? First of all, let me also say we are still a company in mourning together with the families and with the people which passed away in this incident. And this is something what we have used our full strength this week from, is that we have attended to the families directly as our first priority. And maybe we have neglected to, or you feel we have neglected to go to the outside world on these particular issues, but we also have limited capacities. As you can imagine, we are normally running a business and not 100% geared for this crisis situation in this magnitude. So what we have decided is we are going to support the families as much as we can, to bring them back into a mode that they can start living a life again. Because we have taken out one of their beloved ones, and it is very, very difficult to that. And I just want to emphasize that also what the Minister said, it is our highest priority to do this first. We have not hidden away any information which we were not sure of and which were not evident to us. Was very, very limited, and this is also the cause why we are not giving a full-fledged information about something which could have happened. Because we do not know up to now what happened. And we are investigating this complete thing after the site was cleared safe in Tuesday. Since then, the teams are on there, and as said already, it was the South African police force, it is the Ministry of Labor, and it is our own investigation forces, which are trying to have a 3 independent investigation done into this cause and to find out as quick as possible. But it could be, especially on this particular one, a very, very lengthy process, because there is hardly any evidence left. So I want to take you through this explosive incident issue on the making of propellants. What does it mean to make a propellant? I want to explain this on a very, very simple way as...
and what is a propellant?
And what is a propellant, right. Let's start with this one. Thank you very much for this thing. What is a propellant? A propellant is something which is a fast-burning material which is developing in a very, very short time a very, very high pressure, right? And this is normally something what you need to propel, and that's where the name propellant comes from, a shell out of a barrel. So take a 155 millimeter artillery barrel, the G6 of the South African Defence Force. You put in a shell, which is then transferred out, and you put propellant in the back of the shell. And this is what you ignite, and this propellant propels the projectile out of the barrel of the gun. This is a propellant. So it's not an explosive like you have in the warhead. It is a mean of getting something out of the gun of a big magnitude. How do we make the propellants now? So propellants are made of 3 different base materials. One is nitrocellulose, which is referred to as gun cotton. I think everybody knows this and heard this. The second one is nitroguanidine, which is in actual fact is a fertilizer, which is also used in this particular one, which we are producing also in the company. And the third one is nitroglycerin. And these mixtures of different materials are making a different kind of propellant. It depends on the rate. You could use a single base, which is then nitrocellulose. You can have a double base, which is then nitrocellulose and nitroglycerin, or a triple base, which goes then inclusive all the 3 complements, which also includes nitroguanidine. This is just to explain that this is a different process as what we are running in this particular plant. The base material we produce in Wellington. Starting now in different buildings, and this is what makes the safety of the process, let's say, controllable. We have 400 buildings, which was said already on this plant. The reason for this is that every process is in a separate building, always apart from the other building. The buildings are limited with the amount of explosive which we can handle in there. The buildings are limited with the amount of people which can work there. And they are taken apart in a way that if something happens at one place, and I mean now a deflagration like a burning or something like this, which is it's a praxis in this in the process, which is not unusual. The people are always prevented from that, and under normal circumstances, it will not harm anything in the surrounding, not in the factory, and at no circumstances outside the factory. So what we call the explosive circle is a circle which is determined by calculation and by tests around a certain facility, and everything in this circle could be harmful. If something explodes, you could have debris in this area, you can have stuff flying around, you can pressure wave can go in there, which could harm people. And within this circle, and this is all within our parameters. It will not go over the border of our parameters. Something can happen, but we will detain it there. It will never harm anybody outside. And this is the complete construction of a facility like this we have here in Somerset West. So if you look through this little graph what we have built there, we have in one building we start mixing the propellant dough. And this is the same thing if you have like a mixer and you make a dough for your spaghetti at home. You mix this complete thing together, these ingredients, and then you come out with something which looks like a dough, in actual fact even the same color. After that you go with this complete thing into the next building. Again, remember, safety-wise, we are not doing the same operations in all one building, we are going into different buildings. In the second building, you're trying now to make spaghetti. And it really looks like spaghetti. It's long strings of explosives in a very, very specific shape. And this is done via extrusion process, or you can do this, at home with your spaghetti machine. It's exactly the same thing. And then you cut them into length. It's pieces like 2 centimeters in length. And this little tiny things you then dry on pellets. It's a drying process which goes into the next building. So drying is done in another building again. The moment the thing is dry and the moisture is out according to specification, you now have a lot of different cuts, a lot of different material, and they not come only out of one original dough. You make 5-6 doughs, and then you come into the situation that in a chemical process you're not 100% sure that always the same contents are in each different dough what you make. Same thing like home. Sometimes you have 110 grams of sugar, this time you have 100 grams of sugar. Still in the specification, but it's a bit different. And what we need for our product at the final end, for the propellant, we have to make sure that every propellant which is put into the gun has got the same ballistic value. That means the burn rate, the speed of burn must be always the same. So what we're going to do now is we are producing this 5 different or 6 different doughs. We are extruding the stuff, we are drying them. Then we take all these different lots and take a kilo out of this one, a kilo out of this one, a kilo out of this one, a kilo out of this one of the different lots, put them into one machine, and this is like a tumble dryer. You put them in there, you just mix them, and you put them out. And this you do until you have done the whole 5, 6, 7 lots. Which means at the end of the day, you have an exact copy of everything in the whole production run. And that's what we want to have. We have the exact performance in exactly the same things. This is what is done in this particular called blending. So blending is nothing else than mixing the different lots to come to a common result. And the exercise after that, the thing comes out of this tumble dryer, goes into bags, and goes into the magazines, which is our storage space. Safe storage spaces, again, it's a specialized storage that nothing can happen to the outside if some ignition goes there or whatever. Blending is the exercise what we are doing in this particular plant. And under normal circumstances, this, call it mixing, is not a super critical process. We have to be very, very careful with a lot of things that no ignition takes place, and there's a lot of issues like using electromagnetic equipment, things like this is not allowed in this area, and this is banned from it. But other than that, we have no idea, and I must just do my same words. What has happened and caused this detonation? Because it starts with a deflagration, it starts with a burning, but this particular one immediately turned into a detonation. So that means in a matter of milliseconds, we have integrated this whole building and the whole area there in a very bad way, as we said this thing already.
Okay.
Cut a long story short, I think this is more or less the process on what we are working on.
All right, so at least that's another level of transparency for you. That these are the 5 steps that are followed, what happens in each step, and what is the material that we actually had in that particular site. But also the safety precautions in terms of separating buildings and separating processes as well. Chair, would you like to add anything? Okay, let's...
Thank you. We'll open for questions. Can you please identify yourself and the media institution? Yes, ma'am. And then Paul.
My name is Artin Tana from ENC. I have 2 questions for you, Minister. So yesterday there was a memorial service, and the mayor of Cape Town attended, and she spoke about how she wants this plant removed from around the surrounding community, saying it poses a threat if something else of this nature happens. And she said she would approach national government because they do own part of it to try and get it out of here. And then also, the memorial service that she spoke of, is it going to be a national memorial service? Who's going to host that memorial service? And then for the CEO, you know, a lot of young people here actually have a lot of ambitions of trying to come and get employment here. And you mentioned how you employ over 2,000 people. Have the workers been counseled inside here for trauma? And also, the workers that were in that building, did they get sufficient training to be able to work with this whole blending process that you just explained, and how much training do they get to be able to work in that kind of building?
Okay.
Thank you. That was 5 questions, just for that. Paul.
Good afternoon, Minister and officials. Paul Gettiato from Bloomberg. Could you give us the total capacity of this plant, whether it's in tons or of munitions that you can produce? Secondly, has production been stopped? If so, when do you expect it to resume? Yeah.
We had a question here, and then you covered. Yes, sir.
Minister, Chris Magwe from the SABC. In terms of the support, I think the Minister and the CEO has actually mentioned the fact that the families are actually going to be supported by all means. Financially, or what type of support?
Thank you. We'll take that on for now, and then we'll come to the...
Why don't we take a few more, Adrian, and then we can round up.
There are 2 hands at the back. Yeah.
Adrian Swellerl from CBDN.
Sorry, we can't hear you, ma'am.
Renee Dalton from CGTN, sir. I just want to find out, sir, you, Mr. Schulze, you said that the building is completely disintegrated, and we cannot see the building, but we'd like to be able to explain to people what was there before the explosion. Can you take us through how many stories, how many levels? You said there were 10 people. How big was the building roughly? What specifications can you give us? And if 10 was the maximum, why were there only 8 there on that particular shift? That's my question.
Monhla Hlahla from Netwerk 24. I just wanted to make sure, does Rheinmetall have cameras inside these buildings to monitor the processes? Because I was just wondering if there isn't any footage of what happened before this explosion. Dankeschön.
I'll take your last.
Thank you. Minister, just Jason from the Cape Office, just a question for clarity. You said that the process to identify the bodies will start on Monday. Is that correct? That's just a question of clarity.
Thank you.
So let's start with the last one. No, the process, the completion of the process would be sometime, we are told, between Tuesday and Friday. So we'll find out more on Monday, and if there's clarity by Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll hold another press briefing and give you the information. But of course the families will be told first, once we have that information. The support to the families, the CEO can cover that, but there is financial support that has been given immediately. The terms of employment also involve insurance and so on. But those are private matters that we would like the families to understand first, and then we'll sort the rest out later. And the company has also taken responsibility for funerals and those sorts of things as well. But if there's any additional points, the CEO will add to that. Then in terms of Mayor Denel, no, she's welcome to come and talk to us. I think we'd appreciate that. It'll give us an opportunity to at least brief her like we're briefing you about what the facts are. And secondly, it's your point that communities in this area actually rely upon this firm for 650 jobs. But there's also some science around this, which is the circle that was being described. And maybe if it's necessary and if you would like it, sometime next week a technical briefing can be done to you. All right? So what does the circle mean? How is it actually calculated? What's the science and the technology that's actually involved in that, so that you are better informed about that. This is not just something that's cooked up. It's a very scientific process that the company, I'm told, has actually gone through. But what is critical is that we don't want to, right now, take the attention away from the families, the tragedy, and the communities. They must be our focus. And we hope that everybody and all role players will respect that for now, whatever the other temptations might be. And let the CEO explain to you about the counseling, and we have our HR manager here as well, who can also perhaps give some of the explanations, because she's very much at the center of some of these processes. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Let me start with the trauma counseling, the first question which was there. We have trauma counselors on site since the beginning of this tragedy. Immediately deployed, I would say within hours. We started with it. We have in the meantime between 30 and 40 on a constant basis for all our employees. They have a dedicated one, of course, for the families, but we have set up a complete program for anybody which needs trauma counseling, that we can attend to it. Either group or single, it is determined by the person who needs the counseling, and we are providing full support of this, still ongoing. So we have not stopped this exercise. And I must say also that even management went through this trauma counseling, because you can imagine this effect is also not stopping from people which are working in the office and not working in the site. It is something which is very, very necessary over the next couple of weeks, and we will just continue it. If we speak about training, on this issue. Every person which has a job in this company goes through a very, very intensive induction first on a general basis, and then on a specific basis on each individual job which is done here. He gets a special training, and he runs through this training it depends on the kind of work what they are doing. It's a couple of days, it's a couple of weeks, it just depends. But we have a full-fledged program where everybody has to go through. The first moment they go into the production, they are not allowed alone. They have to go with the team leader or with the supervisor, and they are marked very clearly with a red band on the arm. And everybody knows if you have a red band on the arm, you're not supposed to work alone, you have to work under supervision. And this is also what happened in this particular case. It is, maybe to say this, it's quite a simple process. What the people are doing there, they are not processing anything. They are unloading the propellant onto a conveyor. The conveyor takes it up into the first floor. They take the material there and load it into the drum. So that is their work, what they are going to do, what people are going to do in this thing. And then when this thing is finished, the process is started and also ended finally by the supervisor and by the team leader and by nobody else. So the workers itself are workers which carry up the material to the machine. No? This was exactly that what happened in this particular instance.
Total capacity?
Yeah, if you go on the total capacity of the plant, I can't give you the answer in tons, because it is dependent on the kind of material. Sometimes we do, let's say 100 tons, the next moment we do 300 tons. So it doesn't say anything, but I give you a rough figure of money what we are processing through these plants, and this is around about 1 billion a year on the rent side. Then we have the question was also on the
production. Where is stop?
The production stop, right? Production stoppage. And production stoppage, we did stop the production for a day, you can say, of course, at the day when the thing happened in the afternoon, but we started immediately thereafter again. As we said, again, the other facilities were not affected. So we are very safe in the other facilities, and they continue working. Yes, we did a lot of trauma counseling. We did a lot of speaking to the people. We talked to them, and we also helped them, to understand that their place is safe, that we are continuing on this thing. And we used examples like, we are really on a difficult path at this point in time. We are on a rapid, and everything can happen there. The water is splashing from all the sides, but also see the lifelines which are thrown towards us. Take them and take this thing forward. And it is the same thing if you really in a bad accident you lose somebody, you would also not stopping driving a car. And this kind of explanations we did very, very intensively with all of them in the first days, to bring them out of their trauma situation and bring them back into the normal working issues. The
10 versus 8.
Size of the building.
10 versus 8. No, sorry.
The size of the building, that's what I was looking for. Yeah? The size of the building, what I can explain to you, it's a 10 meter by 5 meter building in all on a ground. It is 2 stories high. You transport the stuff from the bottom onto the higher part, and the mixer is then up there, because you have to drain the thing afterwards, or you fill it into bags, and that's why it's the normal way of doing it. You load it to the top, and then you load it again from the drum into bags on the ground. So it's a 2-story building. As I said, around about 50 square meters on the bottom. The capacity of the building is 1 ton limited. That means we can process 1 ton of propellant at a time, not more. That's the maximum what you can do. In this particular case, we had around about 600 kilos in there. The question was about the people which can work in there. The plant is limited to 11 people. 10, we said 10, it's 11 exactly. 3 supervisors and 8 workers. And we had at that time 8 workers in. The license does not say it is always the same amount of people. It's a maximum people allowed in the building. And it varies according to the process what is in this particular building. Is there anything what I forgot?
No.
Camera, whether you have a camera.
Cameras, yeah, right, cameras. We do not have in all these places cameras installed, just because of the reason that the loading is a process which is not non-risky, and the camera itself is installed. There is a camera installed in the operating room which shows the equipment, but this is only activated the moment you are in the operating room. And the footage of this is not kept. We are just using it to monitor what is happening outside of the safety room. So that's the answer. Is there anything else which I forgot? We spoke about subsistence already. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 last hands, then I'm going to ask the chairperson to close after your questions were answered. Okay, sorry, go for it.
Okay, just a follow-up question. Was a supervisor with the workers in that building?
Yes.
You mentioned that they have to be with supervisors. And then also, Minister, the memorial service that you mentioned, is it going to be hosted by national government? Because the one yesterday was attended by the mayor of Cape Town.
No, the company will host it, but once we have more information on Monday, then we'll be able to indicate a kind of program for the next 10 days or so.
And lastly, will we at least get any pictures or visuals of what remains of the building or the site?
The moment it is cleared, yes, we can publish it then, but at the moment you must understand it's still an investigation, and the Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Labour and the SABC has not allowed us to publish any pictures of the site.
Remember, it's a national key point.
It's a national key
so there's
point.
a set of rules that we have to follow.
No.
Jenny Evans from E24. I just wanted to ask how many people are still unaccounted for, or have you accounted for everybody and just need to identify everybody?
Yeah. Sorry.
Last one.
Yeah, Minister, have you been in contact with your German government counterpart over this? They seem to be keeping a close eye on these developments. Thank you.
I've just got back from China, so let me settle down and then we'll be in touch with the German authorities. There's a question for you, Heather. I think there are 8 other people that have been identified.
Yeah. There is, we are, let's say, we are quite sure that we are talking about 8 people, but they have not been identified up to now, and we have promised to the families of not releasing names and anything about them before they do not give us the go-ahead, and I think we are respecting this.
Thank you. The chairperson next to me has been here since Monday, and she'll conclude the media briefing.
Thank you very much. Incidentally, on the 1st of September this year, Denel and Rheinmetall's partnership will be 10 years old. And oftentimes it is ironic because at a time when we are grappling about economic growth and challenges in the society, a partnership such as this between Denel and Rheinmetall was precisely because 10 years ago we knew that to build a competitive industry in engineering, defense and aeronautics, South Africa would need to partner with some of the best in the world. So in the area of ammunition, by far Rheinmetall, I think you can go and check and you'll see it for yourself. They are a lead in explosives, and we maintain a strong belief that that original dream to create an industry that would absorb our young people and give them new careers is probably still a formidable one. The example that the CEO of Rheinmetall has given you in this briefing that when they arrived in 2008, we were so dependent on imports. And by a deliberate strategy for us to go and identify within South Africa different companies that through Rheinmetall they could get trained and could get their people to understand how the production systems are done, is partly why you have ended up with a conglomeration of about 400 buildings in one site. And sadly, in that 10 years, we have lost our sons and our children. And I understand the sadness that the country is facing. And one is trying to find a balance of how, as a country that needs growth, development, training of our young people and employment, how are we going to balance that going forward? Because the reality is no one ever anticipated an accident of this nature to happen. But what gives me comfort is that with our partners, Rheinmetall, we would like to understand how this incident has happened, to perform our oversight to the extent possible, to be able to account, and to be able to improve the way we do things as a group. I want to emphasize again that the partnership with Rheinmetall has not only taught Denel how to start producing things in a modern way. I'm hoping again that we will not let the lives of these young people leave nothing but sadness in our eyes, but that whatever the outcome is, that we are going to try and build on their legacy to improve in all areas and to continue on a path to create a globally competitive defense and aeronautics industry. Because I think that dream is viable and it works. This site and in the Western Cape, there are great examples of new companies that have grown out of this partnership between Denel and Rheinmetall. And I think once we have stopped mourning and we're beginning to build a legacy for these sons of the soil, we should talk more about the achievements that have been made with this partnership. Thank you very much for bearing with us for this sad week, because I know some of you are very sad as well. We will come through it together, and with the support of the families, and with the focus on building a viable industry again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll conclude the proceedings now. Thank you.
There's a book of condolences here that all of you are welcome to sign as well.
All right, well, there you have it. That's the briefing by Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan, the CEO for Denel, Norbert Soos, of course, after the minister visited the company earlier today. Of course, the minister there basically saying, Peter, that the site where the accident happened has been declared safe for further investigations. The South African Police Services, the Department of Labour and an independent specialist appointed by the company will determine what the cause of the explosion, of course, is.
Yeah, indeed. And I think essentially what the minister was trying to say is that, look, they're not going to leave any stone unturned. They're going to do this process properly. It's complex. It may take a few weeks. It may take a few months, but they're going to get to the bottom of it. And the role played by Mr. Schulze really was to try and explain to us what on earth a propellant
very
is.
technical.
But it does seem like a very high-tech operation. There are 2,000 employees, 400 buildings, and they're all sort of work in certain specifications, only allowed to have 10 people in them. And he talked about an area of explosion, so that if something happened in the one, it would be contained. That's how it's been set up, because they're dealing with very sensitive and highly inflammable material in this manufacturing process. So what he was saying is that this explosion shouldn't have happened. There shouldn't have been a detonation. So this is something that they're going to try to get to the bottom of. But also on top of that, really, the focus has been on the families of those that have been lost.
Minister Pravin Gordhan basically appealing to us as the media to give the families the space that they want, saying that this is a very sensitive matter, so it should be handled with care, of course. So yeah, as you say, it was just about the briefing, of course, and the minister continuing to say that there will be a forensic process to get to identify those who were involved in that accident, and of course saying that it may take a few weeks, you know, to come to the end of this particular process, but hoping that by the end of next week that process would have been concluded. Yeah, and commemorations will be taking place in the coming days and weeks as those people get identified. All right, let's catch you up with some business now. Colin is standing